Doug! Did you know that The Empire Strikes Back debuted in theaters 45 years ago tonight? When is the last time you were able to get revenge on somebody who has wronged you? Doug, are you trying to force choke me?
No,
Doug, what are the rules about force choking?
I'm not allowed to force choke you.
And what do we say when we do?
I'm sorry for trying to force choke you, JJ.
Thank you, Doug. Why live easy when you can die hard? Welcome to the Diehards. I'm your host, JJ Wenner, and I am joined by the fantasy orthical himself, Doug Orth. Tonight on the show, we are delving into dynasty values, who you can and who you shouldn't trade for draft picks. Before we start, please make sure you do all the good things to support the pod, like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. Doug, is there anything the good people should know before we start?
All right. Well, my dynasty rankings and advice are based on several factors, including but not limited to a player's age. That's common. Contract status. That's a little bit more uncommon, especially for players on their second or third contract. An expected long-term role and or importance in the offense. Now, I'm going to tell you, trading in any league, especially in dynasty, varies from league to league. The same trade that makes sense in one league may not be great in another, depending on the factors such as league scoring, strengths of your team, and or the stage that your team is in, such as a rebuilding, regular contender, or going all in on an older team.
Okay.
In all the years I played Dynasty, and this is not a humble brag, this is just the pure honest truth, I have never done a true rebuild because I'm prioritizing a good blend of youthful upside and veteran consistency when making moves is important to me, and it has been pretty much in the 10 plus years I've been playing Dynasty. I also live by a relatively simple rule when it comes to acquiring elite fantasy players. JJ, once you have one, you keep them on your roster. It's too hard to acquire another one once you've traded one away. We're going to feature a chart here in the next few seconds here. In the chart that we're going to refer to throughout the show, the players listed in the same group as the draft picks that we're going to highlight are ranked either right below, above, or right below the rookies I have assigned to that draft pick. Let's be clear, this is not ADP that you're going to find anywhere. These are my rookie rankings and then the rookies being inputted into the overall set. Okay. Just for an example, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown ranked right below Ashton Jeanty. A little bit lower than I have Nico Collins ranked right above Ted McMillan. I'm not saying everyone should do either trade. What I am saying is that's where the conversation should start.
Well, much like your dynasty teams, we are a great mix of youthful upside and veteran consistency. So what better place to start now? I know that we have been talking this past week. I was in a couple of rookie drafts. You were helping me with some trade offers. But let's talk about the crown jewel of all rookie drafts, the 101. Now, I know that you don't often possess this pick, humble brag by Doug, but if this is Jeanty, who are you going to trade for him? Or who are you willing to trade for this pick?
Well, yeah, let's go ahead and bring up that chart right now if you want to. Now, let's be clear before we start, JJ is assembling a killer team, and that's just JJ being JJ. He already has the knowledge, man. He's delivering the goods before he even asked me. So anyway, let's look here real quick. I have the 101 plus. Essentially, if you're the manager of any one of these 6 players, you should expect to get Jeanty plus, is what I'm saying here. And I think these 6 players are relatively clear cut.
So Bijan, Gibbs, Chase, Jefferson, Neighbors, and Lamb.
Correct. And the numbers that you see in the parentheses is their current age. Now, the 101 is almost always requires a bounty to acquire, especially when the player is an elite running back prospect. But here's my reasoning for why these players are more than Jeanty. Chase and Jefferson should just now be entering their prime years. They're both 25 going on 26. Neighbors is probably just needing average quarterback play to join them or overtake them, especially at 21. I mean, we could be talking about who knows how close he's going to be to those two guys here after this year. And then Robinson and Gibbs have been well managed to this point and are still young enough where we should expect them to produce at a high level for the next, probably at least the next 4 years. So moving on down now, we're going to go to talk briefly about the 101 Ashton Jeanty, and then two players that I would consider going straight up for. I'm not saying that I would. Again, we're just talking about team builds. We're talking about where you are in the process.
And we are talking about a 1 QB PPR league.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. So with St. Brown, there's a strong argument that can be made that St. Brown belongs in the first group, but I think it would be a mistake to assume that Ben Johnson's departure will not affect his production at least a little bit. So that's where I would be. I'd be willing to have that conversation. As far as Bowers, it could be argued that Bowers' value may never get higher than it is now, coming off a historic rookie season. My question would be how much the arrivals of Jeanty and Chip Kelly are going to affect that volume that was so present last year.
So what are the chances that you could get the 1-1 though for trading Bowers? Do you think you have a good shot at that right now?
Well, I'm probably gonna refer to this at least 5 or 10 times throughout the show here, but I could see if your roster is pretty much well set. Let's say you were able through either tanking or whatever, you're able to enter this draft with 2 top 8 prospects at running back.
Okay.
Now, obviously, I would love to have Jeanty as my flex, but let's say that Hunter Henry is my tight end. I could see a scenario. I'm not saying that I would. I'm saying that a 22-year-old tight end, elite tight end, that you may be able to lock in at that spot for. Bowers is probably going to be a tight end 1. I would say at least 6 of the next 8 years. Okay. I don't think that's. And I guess you just have to ask yourself if it's worth that much to you. If you think that's going to lead to 2 or 3 titles over that time, then I would trade the 101 for it. I'm not saying I would. I'm just saying that's where the conversation would begin for me.
Okay, so that's where the balance is. So now at the 102, you have Tet McMillan, who right now in ADP is right around 102, 103. Who would you be willing to trade straight up for Tet?
Yeah. In this case, now I have all these players on my dynasty ranks. I have ranked right above Tet McMillan. Now, having said that, I'm going to give you reasons as to why I would entertain trading any of them for McMillan.
Okay.
Each of these 6 players, I think, has a nitpicky fatal flaw that could make him less attractive than Jeanty and maybe even McMillan. For Thomas and Nacua, I think the threat of Travis Hunter and Devontae Adams, respectively, could end up capping their upside, at least for the next couple of years. And in the case of Adams capping Nakua's upside, in the case of Hunter and Thomas, who's to say that Hunter doesn't overtake him at some point? I mean, that's a risky. If you're in a startup or if you're just trying to assess value. A lot of people are talking about Brian Thomas, potential overall wide receiver 1 as soon as next year. He might not be the wide receiver 1 of his own team. So so much of that is up in the air, I think. In the case of Marvin Harrison, I think he has to contend with Trey McBride for the near future. And then with the case with Wilson, God knows we love the Ohio State connection, but Justin Fields is his quarterback. And I know we've seen him connect with DJ Moore. I'm just saying that the inconsistency of Justin Fields may lead Garrett Wilson to be more consistent. I think McConkey runs the risk of being a better version of Zay Flowers as the Chargers begin to rely more on the running game and defense. And then as far as Nico Collins is concerned, he's battled to stay healthy, or he struggled to stay healthy, and is the oldest player of this group. Again, I have all 6 of these guys ranked right above McMillan, but this is where the conversation starts for 102.
Okay. Now at 103, you have Travis Hunter. Are you at all nervous about Travis Hunter not being a full-time wide receiver?
That has to be a realistic consideration, and JJ, you and I have gone back and forth on this. I think ever since the draft, up until when we did our draft shows, when we did our last draft show, I had just put McMillan ahead of Hunter that day. I think I'm locked there for now, but my mind has changed on that now for 2 or 3 times. I know what I'm going to do with the 102. No, I don't. So the question I keep asking myself, I keep going back to my pre-draft comps. I have McMillan compared to like a lighter version of Larry Fitzgerald. I have Travis Hunter compared to OBJ. What was the deal with OBJ? He struggled to stay healthy. He had 3 or 4 really good years, struggled to stay healthy. McMillan, Fitzgerald, those guys always stayed on the field. I want my guys to stay on the field, and that's a big consideration there. So yes, go ahead.
So who are the players who you would consider trading for the 103?
Yes. So I have these 3 players, Drake London, AJ Brown, and Trey McBride, all ranked right ahead of Travis Hunter. Now, as far as London is concerned, and the reason I put McMillan over him is I've been saying for some time that McMillan is a better version of Drake London. So my ranking should reflect that. However, I don't think he's available. I think I can count on him, just like I think I can count on McMillan being available. So that's why he's right below McMillan and right above Hunter. Trey McBride, I'm just going to repeat myself. Basically what I said with Marvin Harrison. I think as Marvin Harrison continues to exert his influence in Arizona, one would have to imagine that Trey McBride won't push for 150 targets again. I think he had 147 last year. And then AJ Brown is one of the was one of the tougher ones to rank because he's set to turn 28 next month, and it makes him the oldest player that we've discussed this far. But being tied to a run-first offense like he is, it didn't cap his upside last year. Is Devontae Smith going to exert more of his influence? We're talking about a different offense coordinator now in Philadelphia. Those things are all we cannot overlook the change in play calling from year to year. And Philadelphia has it year after year, it seems like. But the point being is when we get to 28 years old with receivers, especially with running backs, but even with receivers, we need to start thinking about knocking them down a peg. So anyway, that's my reasoning for having those guys right below McMillan and right above Hunter.
Yeah, and with today's ruling that the tush push is legal, Philly might just run it 40 times a game just to get all their licks in before it gets banned in the next offseason. Looking at your 104 is Omarion Hampton. Now, generally, he has been going, according to Fantasy Pros ADP. He and Tet are tied at 102. But looking at Hampton, who are the players who you would consider trading for this pick straight up in a 1 QB league?
Yeah, and you see, I believe I have 10 in this tier, if you want to call it that. I'll just break it down by position. The argument could be made that all 3 of these quarterbacks should be a few spots higher, and therefore in the Travis Hunter tier, if you want to call it that, and above, because Hampton may not we may not see the full Hampton show until 2026. That that has to mean something, especially when we're talking about running backs on 4-year contracts, with team option, obviously. But my concerns here, and the reason I would entertain trades for the 104 is I'm not sure how much longer we can count on Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen continuing to be their elite dual threat selves. So, and then in the case of Jalen Daniels, I think the age of his weapons, McLaurin's going to turn 30 here pretty soon. Deebo Samuel's got to be getting close, and Zach Ertz is still kicking. So, I struggle with the ranking of those 3 quarterbacks, but again, I'm going to consider those the long-term viability. Those guys should also be somewhat viable as long as Hampton is. So, what do you want? What do you want? You want a potential top 5 running back over the next 5 years, or do you want one of the top 3 quarterbacks over the next 5 years? So, then the running backs. This is where running backs get tough, and let's be clear. Omarion Hampton is my dynasty RB4. So this is not in any way it just shows you how much we needed good running backs to come in, how much we needed this class to come in.
Right.
So again, I'm just going to run off some thoughts here about the running backs here. I'm not going to probably make strong cases. I'm going to give you why I would consider the 104. 1 year ago, Hall was considered a top 3 running back, dynasty running back. Now he faces
Breece Hall.
Now he supposedly faces stiff competition from his own backfield. JJ, you're the Jets fan. What do you think about? Before I continue, what do you think about that?
About Breece Hall facing competition from his own backfield?
Yeah.
I don't think Braylon Allen is much competition for Breece Hall, but Breece was disappointing last year. He seemed to lack some burst. I was a little bit nervous by what I saw last year, but that entire Jets offense was in the shitter last year. So, I mean, who could get excited? I mean,
yeah, you're right.
Breece Hall wasn't getting targets. He was like Aaron Rodgers was just saving everything for Devontae and whatever. Why are you making me talk about the Jets? God damn it! Go on to the next guy.
I'm including you in the conversation. Come on now.
Not about the Jets. Good Lord.
We'll go with HN next. And look, until the with Tua, without Tua splits, as long as they continue to hold, it's really difficult to view him as an elite fantasy running back. Jonathan Taylor, getting a bit older, but the only reason he falls here, and I told you that contract status played a role in my rankings sometimes. Well, he's entering the final year of his contract, so until I know he's long-term Indy and we don't know where he might go in free agency, so he's kind of in a holding pattern as far as I'm concerned. Kenneth Walker, we talked about him a little bit last year. The talent is undeniable, and the new offense should be a perfect fit. Unfortunately, durability should be. Unfortunately, durability has been a problem in all 3 of his seasons. Let's see, and then I have Bucky Irving here. I think Bucky Irving will be the rare day 3 running back who doesn't need to worry about being replaced. But I have doubts he'll ever be a true bell cow. Wrapping up with the receivers real quick. Rashee Rice would probably be a little bit higher. But look, he's coming off a serious injury, and they're improving that supporting cast. Travis Kelce's still around. He'll probably be gone after the end of this year, but we're still talking Jalen Royals. We're talking maybe not Hollywood Brown. We're talking Xavier Worthy. We're talking about guys that may keep him from a long-term that might cap his target share around 25%, which is great, but for the elite guys, we want 28-30 type of thing. And then wrapping up with JSN, it looks like he has little competition targets for now, but Seattle appears to be taking on a run-heavy defensive persona, and this is the real question I have there for him. I love Jalen Milroe, but there's a real chance that Jalen Milroe ends up becoming JSN's long-term quarterback. And if that's the case, I don't think we should be expecting 80, 1,200, and 8 on a regular basis from JSN. So those are everything I just said are reasons why I would consider trading those guys for the 104 or Omari Hampton.
I will say, out of those 10 players you listed,
yes,
going back to how you opened the show, I'm not trading any of those quarterbacks unless I have a really good backup. I don't know. Once you have a stud running back, even in one QB, and I know you can get QBs and rotate them in, but in a dynasty, man, if you can get a Josh Allen, man, that sure feels nice being able to run him out year after year. Now, all of those running backs, yeah, I would definitely trade them from Omari and Hampton. Maybe not JSN. I'm a little high on JSN.
Yeah.
I received a couple offers for him, probably right around this range. But I was like, nah, I'm good. I don't know why, though. But Milroe would scare me a little bit. All right. So those are the early first round picks. Why don't we talk a little bit about the middle picks? Now, you have Travion Henderson going as your 105.
I do.
Who do you consider in his range?
It gets interesting here, and I think all four of these players I have right above Henderson. Again, this is where the conversation starts with me. So what I'm saying is the four players I have in this range, I would want just a little bit more than Henderson. With that said, if this was the deal, I would have to seriously consider about taking it. Let's talk the two of my favorite running backs here. Barkley could easily be the most valuable running back in fantasy over the next 2 years, or he could break down next year based on his heavy workload from last year. Barkley will probably play for more than 2 years, but my point being, he's probably going to be an elite or a very good asset in fantasy for probably no more than 2 more years. And basically, I could say ditto with McCaffrey. McCaffrey, he's been the most valuable fantasy player of his generation, but he's getting to a point. He's getting to the same age as Barkley, and 28 is about the time we start expecting these guys to decline. So it is what it is. I think both of those guys, they do enough in the receiving game that they should be able to hold their stock a little bit longer. But the end has to be near. It just has to be. As far as Rome Odunze, I do expect Ben Johnson to utilize Odunze better than he was utilized as a rookie. But man, he has great long-term competition for his targets, and and again, that is what it is. Even if you remove, let's say DJ Moore ends up in the doghouse for whatever reason. And, apparently he wasn't giving enough effort last year, and that caught Ben Johnson's eye as he was watching tape earlier this spring. Okay, let's say you move DJ Moore out of there. Guess what? You still got Luther Burden. You still got Colston Lovewood. Yeah, you got and I don't see as tantalizing as his talent is, this is another situation. I don't see where he gets to a 25% target share in that offense. And that's where we want those guys to be. And wrapping up this tier, Higgins is the wide receiver version of Kenneth Walker in my mind. Very productive when he plays, but it seems like it's missed time multiple games year after year.
So T. Higgins, I'm assuming not Jaden?
T. That would be T. Higgins, yes.
So if you had to pick one, so if I offered you a trade, Saquon for Travion or Christian CMC for Travion, would you take either of those trades straight up?
Again, we'll go back to what I said in the beginning. If I'm either going through a youth movement or I think I'm more than a year away, I am probably doing that trade. If I'm going all in this year, then if I have Barkley and McCaffrey, I'm sitting on them. Does that make sense?
It does. If you had to trade one, who are you trading?
If I had to trade, which one? What do you mean?
Barkley or McCaffrey?
Oof. I would rather part with McCaffrey than Barkley, but man, I might look terrible for making that statement in 6 months from now. But McCaffrey is. I'll put it this way: Barkley has pretty much the best of everything right now. If he can stay healthy, he should be an elite fantasy asset for a while. McCaffrey's got enough going on around him, either through his history of injuries or the offensive line losing a few parts. There's just being a little bit of a change in the roster in San Francisco. You could see. I think you could actually start seeing the decline with him maybe a little bit.
Okay. All right. Let's go to your 6th ranked rookie, Caleb Johnson.
Yeah, we got a big tier here, and I don't know that it makes a lot of sense to talk about every one of them. So what do you say, JJ? I'll hit on one position so I'll hit one per position, and then you could ask me about any others that you might have. Does that sound good?
Sure. Well, why don't you read through the players that you have in this tier?
Okay, so real quick, and you can see if you're following along here, you can see the ages by the players in parentheses here. But at quarterback, we have Joe Burrow. Then we have 4 running backs: James Cook, Josh Jacobs, Chase Brown, and Derrick Henry. At receiver, we got a gaggle of players: DK Metcalf, Chris Olave, Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, Devontae Smith, Brandon Ayuk, and George Pickens. And lastly, at tight end, we have one guy, and that's Sam Laporta. As far as Burrow is concerned, his game will undoubtedly age well, but his lack of rushing upside keeps him from being considered an elite dynasty quarterback in my mind. With Henry is probably he may be the most interesting dynasty asset out there.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to fall victim to father time at some point, but it's pointless to bet against him. If you've seen the way the guy trains, there's no reason to believe his contract goes through the end of the 2027 season. I'm not betting against him that he'll be productive over the next 2025, 2026, and 2027, which is insane to say about a guy who will be 34 years old at that point. I'm not betting against him. If I'm on a contender, I'll tell you, JJ, and I asked you about this early in the offseason when I made this trade. The league that you and I speak about the most, I ended up trading Brian Robinson, Tank Bigsby in the 202 to get Derrick Henry. And that's the kind of trade I'm talking about. And that got two running backs that I really didn't want anymore off my roster. I would still love to have the 202, but I essentially looked at it like I was trading the 202 for Henry. And but I think the value he's going to give you is probably mid first round. And that's crazy. Again, that's crazy to say about a guy that's already in his 30s, but I think that's a real possibility.
I mean, he's one of those players who every year for the past 4 years, we've been saying this is the year he breaks down. This is the year he does. I'm just counting on Derrick Henry to be an outlier. Like, that's a guy I'm not gonna question. If he's on my roster, he might die on my roster.
And the beauty of his game, well, a couple things. He's a long strider. That's not going to go away. He's a power back, meaning he doesn't have to rely as much on quickness. So guess what? If you're almost 250 pounds and you're a long strider, the long strides aren't going away. The weight's not going away. The athleticism's not going to go away. I'll bet on that. Of the 8 receivers here, I'll focus in on Chris Olave. And the reason he's not about a tier or two higher, at least 5 documented concussions during his pro career, just makes him a questionable investment despite the obvious upside. This is another one that kind of hits close to home because at least with my dynasty teams, because I put a lot of thought into trading a 2026 first because this team that I keep referring to needs a wide receiver one. And Chris Olave makes a lot of sense. Although if he gets another concussion or two, I may have just burned a first round pick. So that one's, I just don't know what to do with Olave. Let's just be clear. And now he's got a new quarterback, and I'm sure he'll still be productive, but I don't need that kind of risk on my team.
Well, just looking at these wide receivers, right? Metcalf, Olave, Waddle, DJ Moore, McLaurin, Devonta Smith, Brandon Ayuk, and George Pickens. There's not a single one of them who I could say I'm 100% certain on. They all have question marks to me. And it's not only that, it's like the fatal flaw, right? Their Achilles heel. Like all of them have something that, I mean, George Pickens, I wouldn't trust him like house sitting. You know what I mean? Like I know, well, maybe that's obvious, but Brandon Ayuk, like, is he going to come back? Is he going to be able to do what he did? I don't know, man. Like so many, Devonta Smith is out of all of them is the player I feel the most secure on, which is odd because he's what, 160 pounds? Like,
but you would trust him to babysit.
Yeah, definitely. Terry McLaurin too. He's old enough. He knows better. The rest of them, though. I mean, Olave would forget where the kids are, but no, that's too soon. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I take that back. I have Olave on a team, and I've been getting some offers for him, and I don't know what to do because they're all low ball.
Yeah.
And not one of those offers was the 106, by the way. They were all second round offers. That's
just the thing. No one's going to offer you a sweetheart deal for Chris Olave right now. You know what? I'll give you the 102 for Olave. You're not getting that. I'm sure you're not getting that. So let's just wrap up
with the QB situation. Yeah, Sam Laporta.
Yeah, well, Sam Laporta, and we all remember that record-breaking rookie season. Well, he crashed hard last year, right? And a lot of that had to do with the emergence of Jameson Williams. And then injuries struck the defense. They had to play catch up, and all of a sudden, Laporta goes from being a 3 or 4 catch per game guy to something resembling his rookie year self. So, are we going to count on those kind of injuries again? And then we got a new OC in Detroit too. So, he's going to try to keep things the same, but if he's keeping things the same, that I think we could be looking at a situation. Laporta, I think, was considered the dynasty tight end one last year, right? About this time last year, right?
He or Kincaid were back and forth. McBride, right? The triumvirate.
Yeah, and I would say you have another year like you did last year, or another year like the first half of last year. You could be talking about Laporta tight end 8, or somewhere in that neighborhood, which is mind blowing to me.
Well, especially with the rookies who came out this year.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And in the interest of, I'm not going to skip players, but I'm just going to give you a look ahead here. What I have in my ranks, I have Caleb Johnson, Colston Loveland, and RJ Harvey ranked all next to each other. So basically the 106 to 108 is kind of those 3 rookies we could be discussing with these however many players we're talking about here. How many is that? 14 players. So basically those 3 rookies I would consider, or let's put it another way. The 14 veterans that I have here, I would consider trades for those 3 rookie spots, 106, 107, and 108. So let's just go ahead and move on to 108. Are you on board with that?
Yeah, let's talk RJ Harvey, who's been creeping up in almost every rookie draft I've been in.
Yeah, this is the high as I want to put him in. since we're talking just the rookies right now, this is
what do you think his ADP is right now, according to Fantasy Pros?
What do I think it is?
Yeah.
Well, I know I'm higher on Caleb Johnson than most, so I'd be saying 106, 107.
Yeah, 106.
Yeah, that's getting a little bit rich for my blood. Now I did like him. I know I had him quite low in our pre-draft shows, but that was because of his age. That really didn't have much to do with his game. And I love the fit. I love the fit in Denver, but we're talking about a guy who if my memory serves, he'll turn 24 at some point, maybe around the Super Bowl. But by the time, now we don't count on
24.
He is 24. Okay. And I remember saying in my write-up of him, there was a couple things that he needed to address. I think it was the pass blocking, and I want to say it was some fumbling issue too, but especially like the pass blocking. Let's say it takes 2 years for him to become proficient in that area. You're already talking now about 26, 27-year-old running back who you're just now getting to the point where you want him to be, right? So, I tend not to be overly ageist when it comes, or at least not ageist as some in Dynasty, but that does jump out to me, especially when a prospect is that old. Let's get back to the veterans here real quick as to why I would. Now I have Harvey right above these three players.
Okay.
Now, I'll go a little bit out of order here because that's how I have it, but Jordan Addison, the reason I would consider Harvey over Addison is because Addison is stuck behind Justin Jefferson long term, and now he's moving on to an unproven quarterback. Probably a good one, J.J. McCarthy, but that's a little bit more uncertainty than I want to be dealing with at this particular point. Chuba Hubbard, he probably has a clear path to about 250 plus touches again this year, but what happens after that? I'm not expecting prime Jonathan Brooks at the start of next year because, I mean, look, we may not see what we saw. We may not see college Jonathan Brooks again. We barely even saw pro Jonathan Brooks, but he is going to be a part of that offense. And so I question, are we looking at a committee back after 2025 is basically what I'm saying here. And then we have basically anybody in that Baltimore offense is interesting in my mind. But Zay Flowers is a secondary player in the Lamar and Derek show, which you're going to see him. It's almost like Devontae Smith. You're going to see burst from him, and then you're going to see stretches where it's, okay, 6 for 70. You may see a 4 for 47, someone there. You'll probably get your 8 for 120 with a touchdown too. But nothing that's going to suggest I think I have my wide receiver 1 or even a strong wide receiver 2. I think his career is going to be a lot of hit or miss, which is unfortunate because I think had he landed on a different team, he probably would have he probably would have been as consistent as Tyler Lockett was during his prime. But I don't think you're going to get that in Baltimore. So.
Okay. I mean, I would definitely consider trading all three of those. Probably for the 108, just for the reasons that you said. I can't even disagree. I like being disagreeable to you, but I'm having a hard time at this point. So I'm going to save up my disagreeableness for the next couple. So who do you have? I see like you're 109 through 112. Right? You're late first.
Yeah.
Who do we have here? We have Emeka Egbuka, Tyler Warren, Quinshon Judkins, and Luther Burden as your last 4 in the first round.
Yes.
So who do you have? Who would you trade for those gentlemen?
Okay, so I only have one player listed between Egbuka and Tyler Warren, and I for some reason forgot to include him, so I just had to type him in there, but that would be Jameson Williams. And Jameson Williams is interesting in the sense that we finally saw the first year he came into the league, he missed I think he missed 6 games, at least 6 games due to the ACL that he suffered late in the Alabama's run in the college football playoff. Second year was basically marred by the gambling suspension. So year 3 was his first real off season, and then he turns in a 1,000-yard season. But for anyone who had him on their roster last year, yeah, it was nice when he blew up, and he blew up plenty. But I think here again we're talking about more of a deep threat reliant Zay Flowers, and I think if you're willing to be patient with Igbokwe, I'm not predicting Chris Godwin like ceiling from him, but I think after this year it's wheels up for Igbokwe. So. And I can't say that about Jameson Williams. I'm not sure either because of the new offensive coordinator, or I should say, put it this way: I don't expect John Morton to be Ben Johnson. Right. And so, can he be 80% of that, 90% of that? Possibly, but I'm not. See. Yeah, it's a we'll see, and that's why Jameson Williams is down here and not up with the 106 or 108 crowd. And like I said, that's basically what I have there for between, I believe, is it 108 and 110. And then I have the only other player I have before Judkins is George Kittle. So why don't I talk about Kittle here real quick? I've seen Kittle. I wish I could remember this, but I saw a trade in one of my leagues. I believe it was Dallas Goedert, a 2026 1 and a 2026 3 for Kittle. I think it was what it was. And Kittle
1 and a 3 and 26.
Yeah, and plus Dallas Goedert. I believe that was the trade. That seemed a little bit high for me, especially and the team that did it, the team that made that trade was the real head scratcher there, because I think he's looking at he probably just gave away the 101 for next year. And if not the 101, a top 3 pick. I can't give up a top 3 pick for a 31-year-old tight end. I don't care if it's Travis Kelce at 31. That's a big investment. But
I wouldn't give up that much for Powers.
Yeah, that's a lot of people have, and I'm with a lot of people here that I'm not necessarily bailing out of the 2026 draft, but there's plenty of people who I'll put it this way: I would rather load up on draft picks in the 2025 draft than take my chances in the 2026 draft. I'll just put it that way. It's not that there won't be talent coming out, but because there will be, and we say it every year. The next class. Depending on your point of view, next class either sucks or it's better than the one we just had. I think people need to recognize how good of a class this should be. We may not have a lot of superstar power in this class, but we have a lot of fantasy starters that are going to be coming out of this draft. So if you can get four picks in the first 2 rounds of your rookie drafts, consider yourself lucky, because you probably landed at least 3 starters.
I did. I just had 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. I was very happy.
So, yeah, my only comment about Kittle here, he probably should be higher than where I have him, but it is hard to be crazy high with a tight end who's set to turn 32. I think it's early October when he turns 32. And even in best case scenario, I think we're looking at 2 more years tops, 2 more quality years tops.
All right, let's finish off with Luther Burden at 112.
We have another big tier here, so I'm going to what do you say? One per position again?
Yeah, let's talk about QBs first.
Okay, well, I mean, one player per position, or would you like me to?
Yeah, read all the names and then talk about one. That sounds
yes,
good.
Sir. Gee, bossy too. Wow.
Well, listen, if I have to tell you how to do it.
So, okay, I've got 5 quarterbacks in this group. We got Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Caleb Williams, Drake May, and CJ Stroud. At
Okay.
running back, I'm sorry, you good? Yeah. Okay. At running back, we just have Kyron Williams. And then we have an interesting group of primary slot receivers. That would be Khalil Shakir, Josh Downs, and Jaden Reed. I'm going to go 2-1-2 if that's okay with you here. I'm going to go 2 quarterbacks, 1 running back, 2 receivers.
Like a good zone defense. Let's go.
2, yeah. Better have the big guy in the middle. Good big guy in the middle. Jalen Hurts. I'll start with Jalen Hurts, and I believe we talked about the tush push earlier. Did you hear today's news? Of course, it was approved, but it was actually, I think the vote was 22-10 against the tush push, and they need 24 votes to make the change.
Hate is gonna hate.
So I'm going to say, based on that, the tush push is probably on its last legs in all likelihood, and could be gone as early as 2026. And I think when it goes, it's not going to rob Jalen Hurts of all of his value. He's more than just a push guy, okay? But we've had, back-to-back seasons of 13, 15 rushing touchdowns, something like that. So that number will come down, obviously, without a tush push. And then I'm going to
happy.
Yeah. And then I'm going to go with Drake May as my second quarterback here. It's a virtual certainty in my mind that May is going to improve in 2025, but New England probably needs another year or two to surround him with the kind of talent he needs to push for elite status. I think he's probably on that trajectory, but a 32-year-old Stephon Diggs, rookie year Kyle Williams, 30-plus-year-old Hunter Henry, that's better than what he had to work with last year, but it's not where he needs to be. And if they're lucky, they can bring in an alpha next year. So, Williams can be a complimentary guy. So Diggs can be a complimentary guy, that type of thing. Then now we're cooking with gas at that point. Kyron Williams, again, I'll repeat what I said earlier. Contract status means something to me. Kyron Williams is going on the last year of his contract. I don't expect the Rams to extend him. They have been reluctant to do that. I think they did that with Todd Gurley, and that wasn't even somebody that this regime drafted. And they almost automatically regretted it as soon as they gave him a bit the extension. So Kyron Williams thinks he's going to get a contract extension. I don't think he is. And I think that's why they picked up Jarquez Hunter in the 4th round and drafted Blake Corum last year, is I think they're preparing for life without him. And if Kyron Williams isn't with the Rams, I don't think we're looking at a hugely valuable fantasy asset there. As far as receivers, let's see. Let's go with the first two. I'll go with Khalil Shakir. You'd think that Josh Allen's top receiver would be higher than this, but they have a saying in Buffalo, everybody eats, and that kind of prevents, when everybody eats, that means not one guy's not getting full. So I think Shakir builds on last year, but I think his ceiling is probably capped in Buffalo as long as the offensive philosophy stays the same. And then one of my guys from last year, Josh Downs. As soon as that quarterback situation in Indy is resolved, I'll be more than happy to push Josh Downs up the board considerably, maybe in the 106, 108 range. But that's not happening this year, and we don't know when it's going to happen. So, and all that makes sense with Luther Burden, and it's great that this is the Luther Burden tier, if you will, because that's essentially what Luther Burden's problem is. How is he going to eat in that offense consistently, right?
I hear what you're saying.
I'm asking you, how is he going to eat consistently in that offense?
It will be difficult. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about any of these receivers. I mean, Josh Downs, of course, looks great whenever Anthony Richardson isn't in. I'm hoping, right? I'm hoping Daniel Jones actually starts and we get to see maybe he can kind of give some consistency to Josh Downs. Shakir, like you said, nobody's going to eat there, and Jaden Reed, who the hell knows? I mean, Green Bay has 37 wide receivers. Who knows who's going to get the targets? Luther Burden, I mean, I drafted him in my last rookie draft. I'm excited to have him on the squad, but I am a bit nervous. Because I don't know quite what he's going to be.
And I'll tell you, I remember saying this in my draft write-up of him, or my post-draft write-up of him. There was legit questions about his route running, and I guess it depends on the eye watching it. Some people will say, because some people will see a nice cut and they'll say, "Oh, what a route runner," and some people actually understand the nuance of route running. And then you could question too as to, okay, why did Missouri give him so many screens? Was it just he was such a great athlete? Let's just let him work, or was that the extent of what he could do and we could trust him type of thing? I don't know. I think I was going to say something else to that, but you're looking at a long-term. I don't know what else to say to that other than he could be the potential long-term replacement for DJ Moore if things go poorly there with Moore for some reason, or he could just be when I say he's going to play the Deebo Samuel role, I'm not saying that he's going to be Deebo Samuel, but he could just end up being the gadget guy because. And this is the point I was going to make too in my post draft write up of him. I said he went to the one place where he could probably do what he did at Missouri and still be very viable in fantasy. Just be the gadget screen guy, and I think there's the upside for much more than that, but who knows? And then I think there's just so much competition for targets.
I always get nervous that he could be the next Malachi Corley.
Yeah. Well, you would say that.
Of course I would. It's a Jets podcast. All right. Before we do our commercial break, we have Cole Good asking if we could give a little dynasty advice for the draft he's in. He's in the 10th round, and he's asking if he should draft Benson or Charbonnet.
Yeah, we're not going to get to. I can tell you we're not getting to Charbonnet, but I am considerably down on Charbonnet with this with the Clint Kubiak hire in Seattle. And I know that we're talking dynasty, we're talking long term here. I think we're kind of the same way that we may, not quite the same way, but in a similar way that we're going to be waiting on the full effect of Omarion Hampton until next year. Well, I think we just went through that year with Benson. I think we're going to see Benson worked in more and more, almost to the point where it might be a 50-50 split with him and James Conner. I think Benson is usable this year, maybe as a flex, maybe if things go really well for him or Conner gets hurt, maybe a low-end RB2, and I think he takes off starting 2026. Charbonnet, if you listen to the talk out of Seattle, that's Kenneth Walker's show, and it probably will remain that way.
And David Martinez is there now.
And I exactly, and I was gonna get to that. I think there's a real possibility that the coaching staff likes Damian Martinez enough where if Walker was to get hurt, or let's say Kenneth Walker continues to just get hurt year after year until Charbonnet becomes a free agent or whatever, I think the staff is high enough on Martinez where it could be a committee where it would be, instead of Charbonnet getting the entire workload like he did last year, I think it's him and Martinez. So my answer to that question would be Benson by a considerable margin.
All right, diehards. Dynasty leagues are without a doubt the fastest growing segment in all of fantasy sports. The Dynasty Football World Championships, now in their 13th season, are underway. Jump in a new startup and draft your own team from the beginning, and you'll be well on your way to becoming the next Dynasty King. Drafts starting at just $75, and higher options are available for high stakes guys like Doug. head to thedynastyking.com and look for the Dynasty Football World Championship. All right, Doug, it's time to do a little bit of a speed round through the second part of our podcast. So let's talk about the early second round.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. This is going to be a speed round because I didn't put out many notes for this. So I think we'll go one player per position where there's actually players there, and you'll notice we don't have rookies over there because quite honestly, you could have 14 guys, 14 rookies you could talk about in the second round. Quite honestly, so David Montgomery. The reason David Montgomery's here is 27. I'm not sure when he turns 28, but again, we're talking new offense coordinator. How much longer is it going to be before that's the Jahmyr Gibbs show? I think you're looking at one more fantasy startable year from Montgomery, and then I think it's not the wheels coming off, but I think it's just going to be at that point Gibbs will be in his prime. Montgomery will be starting, going 28, 29. I think you're looking at your last useful year with David Montgomery. Receiver, I guess I'm going to talk about Ricky Pearsall. And then it's funny because he kind of held his value without actually playing much last year. But I think this is something we could revisit next year, and he's a middle of the first round guy. I also think that there's a real possibility that he's no higher than third on the totem pole. So I don't know what to think of him. I know the talent's there. I don't know what San Francisco's plan is for him yet, and so that's why he's stuck in early second. Hawkinson, I think the only reason Hawkinson's at this point is because he's still a very viable fantasy tight end, and that still means something for now. He still has a few more years left, but I think we've probably already talked about. Let me see here. He's probably at tight end 4, tight end 5, somewhere after the rookie. So he's probably like tight end 6, tight end 7. I think we've seen his better days, and not because he's aging out. Just we're talking now about the same reason that I was down on Addison. He's Hawkinson's behind Justin Jefferson, and he's at least on equal terms with Jordan Addison with not a rookie quarterback, but it might as well be a rookie quarterback. I'll be happy to move up Hawkinson as we go along, but I think early second is the most you're going to get for Hawkinson.
All right. Sniper Mel asks, do you all believe in the Madden curse people are talking about? Hell no. I don't believe in curses. I just believe football players' careers are fickle. And you're up one moment and down the next, right? Yeah.
I don't believe in the Madden curse. I believe in avoiding the year after the career year. So that's sometimes easier said than done. But just to give you an example, Saquon Barkley's coming off career year. I probably will not have much ownership of Saquon Barkley this year for other reasons than the fact he's coming off career year, for the fact that he's coming off such a heavy workload from last year.
Because you hate the Eagles. What is wrong with you? Don't make me call out all the Eagles fans from my area to come talk to me, buddy.
So I think the Madden curse is more of what happens is the Madden people end up finding the guy who's coming off one of his best years, if not his best year. And what ends up happening, especially at running back, is the guy's coming off of a heavy workload. It's usually something other than the Madden curse is what I'm trying to say.
Well, all right. I'll go with what you're saying there. All right. Middle of the second. Who are you trading for?
Yeah. I'm thinking about who I want to highlight here. Justin Herbert probably needs to be a tier higher. And I know in my leagues, you're not getting Justin Herbert for a mid-second. You're probably having to give up the 112 for him. But here again, the reason I'm not down on him. If I had an opportunity to get him, I absolutely would. But I think anybody that's not associated with the running game or the defense with the Chargers, I might be a little bit down on, just for the simple fact that I think a Harbaugh team is going to be defense and running game. And once we see how good Hampton is, it's going to be hard for that offense to get the kind of volume that maybe we saw toward the end of last year. And at running back, we got a bunch of old guys, and here's Trey Benson. I talked about Trey Benson earlier. I really don't know what I'm trying to trade.
3 men and a baby.
3 men and a baby, exactly.
Colin Kamara and Benson.
Which one's Steve Gutenberg? Which one's Tom Selleck?
Ted Danson.
You remember Ted Danson? Thank you. Yeah, I think we can skip over this one. Benson would have been the one I would have wanted to highlight. I talked about why I think that he's so much a better option than Charbonnet. And then we have just two grandpas there at receiver. I don't know. I'm going to ask you, JJ, what do you think about Tyreek Hill? I'll tell you my thoughts in a second. What do you think about Tyreek Hill?
I think he has a pocket full of Werthers, if you know what I'm talking about. Right? Tyreek Hill says, well, probably starts most sentences when I was your age. Tyreek Hill scares the bejesus out of me because I finally drafted him last year and he pooped the bed. So I don't know, man. When all you have is your fastball and you lose your fastball, it makes me nervous because what's next? And I don't know if his fastball was so good, right? He was like, who's that guy? Aroldis Chapman?
Yep.
Like,
yep.
Right? Like, but once you dip down to the mid 90s, it's not so great anymore. So I don't know about Chapman, about Tyreek Hill. I'd be a bit nervous about drafting him. Now, he is falling in drafts, but if somebody offered me a mid-second for him, man, looking at ADP, if I could trade Tyreek Hill for Trey Harris, I don't know if I'm doing that.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Tyler Warren? No, but you know how I feel about Tyler Warren. Colston Loveland, maybe. God, I don't know, man. I lean towards veteran. Maybe it's because I'm old and I think old people still have value, which is how I fall asleep at night by saying that in my head over and over, right? So that nobody old yellers me. But I don't know. I have a hard time giving up somebody who has produced for somebody who has yet to produce.
After hearing you say that about old people, it makes me think we need a sponsorship from Jack Handy's Deep Thoughts, if you know what I mean.
Oh, listen, you don't want to. Jack Handy. Jack Handy was my man.
Sorry, younger crowd, if you don't know Jack Handy's Deep Thoughts, look it up. Do a Google search after the show, please. Yeah, I'll tell you my thought about Tyreek Hill. I have him in 2 of my 5 dynasty leagues, okay? And I'm hoping to get a 6th dynasty league before the end of the year. But my point being is this. I have him, you could say he's potentially the wide receiver 1 for one of my teams, and you could say he's definitely no higher than the wide receiver 3 for the other one of my teams. And when I look at my wide receiver 1, him potentially being my wide receiver 1, I say to myself, I just need Tyreek Hill to give me one more wide receiver 1 year. I look at him in my wide receiver 3, the team where he'd be the wide receiver 3, and I don't know if I can trust him to be the wide receiver 3. So that's where I am with Tyreek Hill. And I think a lot of his production or lack thereof last year had to do with the fact that he played through the wrist injury for as long as he did. I don't know that he necessarily lost a step, but the end is near, unfortunately. And the end has to be near for Mike Evans, even though he keeps churning out 1,000-yard seasons.
Yeah, last year kind of 1,000-yard season with a little bit of an asterisk. They really worked hard to give him that extra.
Yeah, they did.
Last couple yards. All right, late second.
Woof. Okay.
Woof indeed.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, we'll do one from each, and you know what? I guess Trevor Lawrence jumps out the most to me. And the only reason he's this low with the receivers he has now, he should be moving up to mid-second pretty quickly. But he's been in the league now 4 or 5 years, and I think we've seen one what we would consider great season from him, or very good season from him. So yeah, you can blame that on Urban Meyer, you can blame that on Doug Peterson, you can blame that on the supporting cast.
But don't you eventually have to blame him?
Yeah, at some point we have to. It's getting to be put up and shut up time for him. I still believe in him, but that doesn't mean, just because I believe in somebody doesn't mean much. I talked about Jonathan Brooks earlier. I think what might surprise people here is Jordan Mason. And if you notice, I'm not including Aaron Jones in this. We haven't talked about Aaron Jones, and we're not going to talk about Aaron Jones. I have Jordan Mason higher than Aaron Jones. And for that, I looked at.
We just talked about Aaron Jones.
I'm gonna force choke you again if you don't watch yourself.
What are the rules?
Don't force choke you. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I like the reason I like Jordan Mason here above, believe it or not, Aaron Jones is Aaron Jones signed a 1-year contract to return. And I can't remember if that was before or after the trade. I think it was before the trade of Jordan Mason. But what did we hear as soon as Minnesota acquired Jordan Mason? He's going to be the hammer, the short yardage hammer. I don't know if Mason looks good and he's breaking tackles and I'm not sure that doesn't end up being something closer to a 50-50 split there. And again, I'm more concerned about the contract than I am anything. Aaron Jones, I don't think is coming back to Minnesota after this year. And Jordan Mason signed a 2-year contract with Minnesota shortly after the trade. So I think we're potentially looking at the lead back in Minnesota starting in 2026. And I think he'll be fantasy viable in 2025. At receiver, we got what?
Can I
Yes, sir.
interject, sir?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if it's the bourbon talking.
It is.
God, I am so worried about Jonathan Brooks. I don't think I would trade a late second for Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah.
Looking at the running backs I can get in the late second round, Tuden, Blue, even Sampson. God, to suffer that bad of an injury in multiple seasons, it really makes me worry about his viability at all. And I don't know how many times you can tear it up before you're able to come back. Like, it really worries me.
The history of players tearing the same ACL twice and coming back is not good. In fact, I want to say, you remember Garrison Hurst? I
do.
I think he may be the only one. I think he tore the same ACL twice, and I think he ended up having some success after that. The reason Brooks is even on this list in the late second and not somewhere in the third is his age. And okay, we're going to put him on in Dynasty. We're going to put him on IR this year. I'm not even going to count on him next year. So I'm looking to 2027 for this. But in 2027, he's going to be a 23-year-old guy. Now, assuming he doesn't hurt that knee again, he's going to have. We saw what he could do healthy. And now the last time we saw him healthy was before he tore his ACL twice. But I do think I don't know that there's been too many examples of a guy that young tearing his ACL twice. And so I'm giving him more of a runway than I would typically would. If he was 24, 25, I wouldn't be advocating for him at all. But we're talking about somebody who could be 2 years removed from two ACL surgeries and still be young for a or relatively young prospect. So I'm probably betting on him and not betting so much on science on that one for what it's worth. But that's my defense. I'm not saying it's a good one, but I would, when I'm talking late second, I'm talking 210, 211, 212, somewhere in there. And at that point, I'm not trading Bashal Tootin, or I'm not trading Tootin for Brooks. Just let's be clear. I mean, if Tootin's there, I'd rather have Tootin than Brooks. Okay. But when after the Tootin, you get the DJ Giddens, you get the Devin Neals, you get those guys that are typically going in the third round. I'll take my chances with Brooks just because I think there's a chance that he could be viable in a couple of years, where there's no guarantee with the third round running backs. At receiver, I'll make this real quick. At receiver, the one that probably stands out the most is Xavier Worthy. I think, assuming that Rashee Rice gets back healthy, the reason that Worthy, in my mind, took off toward the end of last year was because he was basically playing Rashee Rice's role. You bring Rice back, I think Worthy goes back to being more of a deep, vertical threat, which is what Kansas City offense needs, but I don't think that's going to be great for his long-term fantasy viability. And at tight end, I want to talk about Kyle Pitts, so I'm not going to talk about him.
God, I would rather have chlamydia than Kyle Pitts. Right? If I'm being honest here.
Let's talk about.
No, you don't like the chlamydia joke? No. All right. Oh, go on.
Yeah, we don't have a sponsorship from Merck or Pfizer or anything, so we can't. No. When we get a sponsor for that, I'll talk about the chlamydia all day. Okay. I'll talk about Njoku real quick.
Quick message, Carla. Hold on. Go ahead. You talk about Njoku while I message her.
Talk about Njoku real quick. Yeah, so the reason he's here now a little bit higher is he's entering the final year of his contract, which if he goes somewhere else, it might actually be good for his fantasy stock, considering the quarterbacks that he may or may not be playing with in Cleveland. But that's why he's here. And I would probably rather have Njoku than the late second. But my point being, not cool.
I don't think this is the way to break the news to your lady. I'm sorry, you were saying.
No, I can't follow that up. Cannot follow that up because no amount of David Njoku is going to cure chlamydia. So I guess we're just.
But I tell you what, Will, a little bit of Mark Andrews, man. I think Mark Andrews has an axe to grind after that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's going to do everything within his power. I think Lamar Jackson's going to do everything within his power. Like Baker Mayfield dragging Mike Evans to 1,000 yards. I think Mark Andrews is going to have one of his best seasons this year.
Yeah.
To try to wipe off that drop or drop/fumbles. # analyst? No, I'm sorry.
I can't get the chlamydia comment out of my head. So everything that you just said, I put.
Chlamydia is not that hard to get to knock off. Thanks to Merck. All right, it is time to say
sponsorship pending.
Oh dear Lord, man. It's time to say goodbye, Doug. Say goodbye. Let people know where they can find you and any final thoughts you might have.
Yeah, still in hiatus as far as pushing articles on the site at FF Today. But we'll get cranking out the offensive line content here in the next couple of weeks. That's what I'm going to be working on as soon as we get done with the show here. I'll start preparing for those first 2 articles about offensive lines, and that's all I can think of. what's going on with you?
Well, I'm at JJ Wenner on the socials. You can follow the pod at FF Diehards on X. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. Make sure you are following Doug as he begins to crank it right after this show. Make sure to follow Full Time Fantasy on X. Stay tuned for exciting updates about the FFWC. We are going to be back next Wednesday at 8 p.m. talking scheme changes with Jim Coventry. So be sure to tune in. And until then, be safe, be well, and as always, boat drinks, my friends, boat drinks.